pawns, man, in the game, they get capped quick. They be out the game early.
Unless they some smart-ass pawns.
This is not meth.
Welcome back to mini-season. That's not what we're watching tonight. Those three shows have been put to rest. We finished those. We are back for our mini-season before we start season 3, or season 2. We're already on to season 3 in our minds, but we're going to do season 2 first. We've already brainstormed. So you will see no break, but we will do these 3 shows, and then we will be on to Mad Men, The Shield, and The Sopranos. But before we get there, we're going to tackle 2 really great miniseries and one I had fun with in 2016 that I'm introducing to Matt and Mark. I'm not a TV show guy. We have found that out as we've went through the shows already. They have seen more TV than I could even possibly think of. We brought Band of Brothers, which I think is the one I hear the most about miniseries like The Best of the Best. We are doing 4 episodes of that tonight. We're talking about the first 4 episodes. I understand it now. It could fall off a cliff in the last 6 episodes, but right now I completely understand it. The next one, Mark is a sick fuck. He's depressing as all get out. He wanted to do Chernobyl. It's only 5 episodes, but if you read about it in history books, bad stuff. Bad stuff happened. Bad people did bad things. And then Stephen King's book 11/22/63 was adapted in 2016 with James Franco. We do not condone any of the bad things that any of these actors did at any time. I know James Franco. I can just imagine some people be like, "He's
we do not
canceled,
forgive
though."
Chris Cooper for his sins.
Yeah, he went back and did some shit. But overall, I saw it in 2016. I really liked it. I actually really like the book. It doesn't do really justice to the book, but it's nice to see those stories played out. So we're going to talk about that. Matt, how are you, man? I haven't seen you in so long.
Doing good, you know? I think it's really good that as the TV Chronicles, we're taking some time to honor the miniseries, which are kind of like a TV staple. I remember like growing up in like the 90s and stuff, they'd have like the Stephen King miniseries almost every year. So I think it's fitting that we have a Stephen King miniseries. I think that's really cool.
Mark, how are you? You made me sad all flipping these 2 episodes. So how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm very excited to talk about this Band of Brothers. I love Band of Brothers. I watch it probably at least twice a year. And I think Chernobyl.
Twice a year?
How do you find the time in between Wire rewatches?
This man actually doesn't watch movies at all. He just watches his favorite show. He ends it and starts the show. And he's really big on like things that affect cities and places. Like Baltimore was first on his list. Chernobyl's next. I can just imagine what he's going to do to other places.
Listen, there's multiple veterans holidays, and that just reminds me, oh shit, I should watch Band of Brothers. Okay. And then this is what you do. And yeah, Chernobyl is fucking awesome. I just watched it like a year ago for the first time. But yeah, we're gonna do this. Might as well do
I thought you
it.
were gonna say I rewatch that all the time too. I was like,
oh no, it's really and then yeah, like I heard about 11/22/63. Sounded interesting. Never got around to it. Yeah, should be okay.
Yeah, so they're helping me with my TV watching, basically, making me see more TV, having a damn good time. But we are going to start with 11/22/63. It's going to be my favorite part because every show we normally do, they have seen a lot of it and or seen stuff. They haven't seen this one, so I'm honestly to see their honest reaction. So the very first episode of the one is called Rabbit Hole. So basically, if you don't know anything about the series, it's basically time travel. Is the main crux of the thing, and about going back and changing the events of history to see for a better tomorrow. We get to introduce. I think it opens, if I can remember again. I'm trying to pull this stuff from like Breaking Bad is like in my brain. It's burned. This is just like I revisited for the second time. But I think it starts with a high. He's in high. They're in like a high school classroom. The guy, gosh, he's a great character actor. I can't think of who his.
Leo Rippey or something. Leo or Leon Rippey, something. I believe that's the guy's name.
Yeah.
The mayor from Eight-Legged Freaks.
Yes, that is definitely one of them. He's in there giving a speech, like talking about, like presenting in front of his class about his when his dad murdered his whole family and left him for like hurt him bad but left him for life. And I'm like, whoa, I totally forgot this is how this opens. But we know that Jake Ebbing is a school teacher. He's played by James Franco. They have a conversation. Basically, he's like, hey, he's wanting to like get a letter of recommendation. He's like, yeah, when you run this place, just give me a raise. He'll do it for him. And then Jake just goes about his day. He ends up going to a diner where he has a friend that owns the diner. Al, his name's Al. He runs a local diner. He's like, he orders a burger. They have like the small little chat with him about like, and this woman walks in and goes, man, I don't know how you can eat that. That can't be real meat because he's really cheap prices. Like it's absolutely just like dirt cheap prices. Al disappears, and then Al comes back. Al is played by Chris Cooper. He is normal Chris Cooper, nothing wrong. He comes back outside of it, and he is like aged in front of us. And James is like, what the fuck? Like, wait a minute. Wait, what? How did you just go from normal? He's like, it's cancer. You got cancer in like 5 minutes? Go to the back? Like, please tell me. He gets pretty upset with him. He tells him, hey, just leave and come back tomorrow and I'll tell you everything. So he ends up going back and telling him. He says, walk into this closet. As you're going in this closet, just go in the closet and then you'll understand more. Go in the closet, understand more. He ends up going in the closet. He drops from like the sky or a little point and into the ground. He is back in 1960. He through the closet. He is back in 1960. Everybody, he meets the guy. You just meet a lot of characters throughout this series. You're not supposed to be here, but a guy is telling him he's not supposed to be here. He ends up popping back out of the rabbit hole and talking to Chris. And Chris was like, "That's the day." Like, and he's still not really believing him. He doesn't really know what's really going on with the whole situation. So he ends up telling him to go carve in a tree, and then go back into it, and then see if just prove it that way. So he goes back to 1960. You're not supposed to be here. Everybody's staring at him, looking at him weird because he clearly doesn't look like he's from 1960. He carves in the tree. He carves in the words JFK on the tree. He goes back out, and JFK is on that tree. Chris kind of tells him every time you go in and out, it resets. So it doesn't matter if you're in there for this amount, this little. Every time's a free start. And he's like, I was in there for 2 years. And he's like, what is that? It's 2 minutes out on the outside world. So there's a lot of like, and I think that's where some people can get bogged down. There's a lot of rules to the setup and what works and what doesn't work. But basically, his whole plan is he wants to go back in time to stop the JFK assassination. He believes if he can stop the JFK assassination, he doesn't like where the world is right now, and he believes it would be in a better place if JFK never died, if then his brother wouldn't have had to run for it, and he doesn't believe it's Lee Harvey Oswald. He's like, I want you to like. He's basically created this entire thing for him. This entire like blueprint and IDs and credit cards and everything for him to be able to survive in this world. But he wants him to take the jab because he is sick and he is dying. Jake ain't having it. Jake's like, this is fucking wild. I don't know why I'm the guy that you're choosing to do this. And he's like, I need you to do it. And they end up getting mad at each other. And he ends up leaving, tells him to get the hell out of here, don't come back. Jake shows up the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Al is dead. Or I think he's dead. Is that right?
Certainly
I'm assuming
dead.
he's dead. Well, whatever. He looks at him slunched over the chair and he says, I'll see you in 2 minutes. Basically, he goes back into the thing. He's going to take over he's going to go. They've given him sports books. They've told him what to wear. And you get cutbacks throughout these episodes of him and Chris Cooper, like, talking about the plane. So that short clip, which I really hate, because this first episode's very long. Like, in a term of an episode, I hate that we have to have so much cutbacks to it because it seems like a conversation lasted 5 minutes in their world. And what they show us, and then they decide he says, nah, and he's like, get the fuck out of here. But now he has, like, everything laid out and, like, how to do it if he goes in. So it's kind of cookie cutter, kind of how that works. But he's got, like, gambling to help him money. He needs to buy a suit. He needs to get a car. So we get to see Jake in the world in 1960. He has to make it all the way to 63 to win Kennedy's assassination. But again, he's like, 3 years. He's like, dude, that's no time out here. It just will seem like a long time in there. Ends up doing all that, buying a car, and then he gets he finds a bookie. I don't know if I'm jumping. I may be jumping.
No, you're good.
I think this is the next step, but he ends up finding a bookie because they told him, he's like, I think this is how you can find a wager. And he's like, yeah, I'll give you a wager. I'll take this guy to win by knockout. All right, I'll give you 3-1 odds. 3-1 odds? I'll make it more interesting if you can name the round. He's like, 6th round. Okay, I'll give you 35-1 on that. And then he's like, how much you want to place on a 35-1 bet? $100? And everybody's like, $100? Like, or whatever.
He just bought a car for $700.
Yeah, like, the man doesn't know, like, anything. Like, those are the funny moments. Like, there are multiple points where they say the money. He's like, okay, no problem. Like, whatever. But he puts $100, 35-1. Psycho. And they're like, no, we'll take the bet. And there's like, and then the worst thing you can do is sit down. We can watch it. We can listen together. And the guy's getting beat up in his round, and he's like beating up, and then he starts coming back, and he ends up knocking him out in the 6th, and everybody's like looking at him. He goes, was that the 6th round? He's like, yeah. Oh, they go back, get the money, and they're like, yeah. And they're watching him walk out, and they're following him, like, when he goes out, like, he just made
he's
enemies.
Like, count it.
Yeah, he's like, count it. He's like, no, I'm good. I trust you. No,
count it.
Count it. He's like, okay, I will count it. And then ends up counting it, and it's whatever. And he gets out. He does the whole, like, he does the whole looking back on the thing, and then he ends up leaving. He gets up in a hotel room. The guy ends up following him to the hotel room. I guess the little part I left out, his student was, like, not paying attention in class and, like, showed him a video of, like, this bird, like, flinging, and he ends up using that to distract the guy that ends up showing up into his damn hotel to hurt him. And he ends up getting away. So he ends up leaving. He ends up, like, driving to a different part of, I don't know where
I think he goes to, like, a different
Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the whole, like, second episode kind of thing of him going to that. But in the first part of this, the second part is when he, like, starts to learn about and gather information about Lee Harvey Oswald, and finds like the people that are intercepting, like who he has to get close to, who he has to be involved with, all the stuff. So he ends up doing that, and gathering information. Is this the episode where he? There's two episodes. I shouldn't be too far off
Pretty
this,
much all
but
the
like
Kennedy stuff is in the first episode. All the
okay, so
Kennedy
yeah.
stuff.
All these second is the
Yeah, the
so
second's the helping the kid. Yeah.
he ends up telling him about a situation. He's like, "This is the guy." Like, and there's a moment that in the time that you could feel the past and future like fighting with each other, and he's like going to a club. He also is like introduced. Oh, well, I think before that happens, he goes and sees Kennedy's speech,
Mhm.
and he sees Kennedy's speech, and he goes to like he ends up going to the after thing, and they like, you're not supposed to be here, it's all right, and they end up taking him to the basement. He has a knife from the Vietnam War that has not like really kicked off at this point, so it's like he's trying to hide, and they're like, I'm just a big fan. Like, have you heard that speech? I wouldn't hurt him like that, man. He's the greatest. And they're like, I get all that, but like, don't come back to any of these things. And then, then Cooper describes an event where he's back in time, and it's fighting the past and the future fighting with each other, and he ends up talking about like the situation that ends up happening, right? So he's like, you'll go in, there's a fight breaking out outside, do not get involved in the fight, move past the fight, and then next you'll end up going into the thing, you'll be asking this question, everything. So at one point, Al got all the way to where the fire broke out. Al got caught up in the fire where he burned his arm, and it really affected him in the real scenario. Like, it was where the passing thing. He said, but past the fire, I can't help you. I don't know what else ends up happening. And as he's walking through this like nightclub chandelier, like things are falling. He can sit near these people and hear like Lee Harvey Oswald. He has these moments of like clarity with it all. And I'm trying to remember my notes. It ends up pushing back. Tim takes it out in a dangerous way, and then he ends up like
He like hears about the conspiracy, then he escapes or runs away. I think that's where he gets like in the room with all the cockroaches and stuff.
Yeah, all the cockroaches. No, because that's when they wake up and he's getting interrogated by the guy. Those are two different things. But he ends up wanting to leave the situation. Like, he's like, I'm not staying. Like, because he meets like that woman. Like, he gets into like a
he just like a little inn and like ends up getting burned down.
Yeah, he ends up burning down. All
his
his
notes.
stuff's there.
Yeah.
He finds it all. He's like, I'm not staying. Like, this clearly doesn't want me here. Like, whatever it is, I'm going to leave. And then he pulls up a map of Kentucky. He notices the same guy that was giving the presentation at the beginning of the thing. He's like, before I go, I think I can do one good thing. Mm-hmm. And he ends up just committing to going to the town of Kentucky, trying to save his family from the situation. And that's kind of how the first episode ends. What are your guys' overall thoughts of that very first episode?
I think it's intriguing. You know, I kind of like the basic premise of it. I think that the Jake character is a dumbass who just cannot read a room and messes everything up. I mean, he obviously doesn't play video games because he has a respawn point that he could just use whenever he gets in trouble. Just go back to the little spot and then hop back out, then hop back in and start all over again. The scene with the gambling that drove me crazy, that he went through with that. Because I mean, back then, I mean, he was getting like rooms for like $2 a night and stuff like that, and he's trying to win like $3,800 on one bet.
It was wild.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely got me intrigued, and I was interested to see where. I'm happy that he realized he's probably not the person to save the Kennedy thing, so he's going to go to this smaller stakes thing that he might be able to fix, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, like it is certainly an interesting premise. Like, we are kind of thrown into it a bit, where we meet Cooper, and he's like, just walk inside this closet, and like, oh, that's a time loop. I'm like, what? Like, we're just getting started here. Like, find about a time loop in the closet. Like, okay, but no, stuff him going back in the past, I think is interesting. The sense of him being there for a while. Like, I was kind of curious about the show. Is like, well, is he just in Dallas for a day and he just keeps reliving the Kennedy assassination? No, like he's going in, he's back in time. Like he kind of has to live in the 60s for a long time, which makes, I think, it a little bit more interesting. I'm going back and forth on it a bit. I want to see how it plays out more of the aspect of the past pushing back on him. Because on one hand, feels a little silly. On the other, it kind of does, like, it brings in an interesting foil to kind of why Chris Cooper hasn't been able to do this yet. Why it's taken him. I mean, because which honestly, going back here, you talk about kind of Chris Cooper coaching him through that instance. Like he mentioned, like 4 things, so he had to restart this 4 times. Which going to this dinner, I think essentially took him 8 years to just do this dinner like 4 times.
Yeah.
Like,
And
no,
the
like
crazy thing too is I think it takes him like 2 years in there just to where he even gets to meet Oswald or something like that. But he's like, oh, I don't want to kill him because I mean I don't know for sure that he did it. Like just kill him and then go back and you'll see if it worked. If not, go back and reset it all over again.
Yeah.
I guess although part of at least from what we got from that even the second episode, it's like, well, we don't want to just like kill people in here. We don't want to be crazy men. Even though there's maybe an instance, you probably should just. This episode could have been like really, really short because I feel like it's pretty obvious. So what he should have done with old Transformers guy.
Okay. The next episode is The Killing Floor. He ends up going to Holden, Kentucky. Focuses on Harry Dunning, a janitor from the high school, where he ends up going back to try to stop his dad from murdering his kid. They end up driving in there. It's a very small town. Like no one really knows anything that's going on. They don't really know. And then uh, he's like spying on the situation. He knows the family's parked outside. He gets there and they get out of the car and they're like, "Oh, we're your fan." Like he notices that they're separated. Like the situation is they're like hold on, sorry. He notices that they are the wife and are separated. They're not together, and he ends up trying to get more information on who Harry is or Frank is, and how he can prevent the situation from ending up happening. He ends up going to a bar where he goes in and talks to a guy. Guy's very apprehensive because he's asking about how he knows who Frank is because he's not from here. He's like, "How do you know who Frank is?" He's like, "Oh, somebody told me to look him up when he gets here." He ends up going down to sit down and have a drink. In walks Frank instantly, basically walks in and says, "Hey," like, um, and then they end up talking. He ends up talking to the bartender. And says, "Hey, I know you know the person. Somebody's asking for you." And he doesn't know him. So they end up meeting. They end up drinking together. He says like, I know you're a writer. Who are you? He's like, a writer. Blah blah. They end up having a bunch of drinks. Like, I think he's like quoting something like at one point, like some poem or something, and like having this whole conversation. Yeah, some writer. Yeah, some writer. He's not doesn't write anything at this point. And they end up like he ends up like making him leave the bar with him, and they end up like driving together. And again, Jake just goes like willingly, like no problem whatsoever. Like
He doesn't know how to read a room. He doesn't know when he's in
Like if
danger.
anybody's looking at the scenario, like when it's happening, like I don't know what's his who plays him?
What?
Frank is played by Josh Duhamel.
Josh Duhamel,
And
yeah.
Josh Duhamel looks like the guy that is about to like murder your whole family. Like his eyes, everything tells you this dude's gonna kill us all. Like it's over.
Oh, he plays a really good scumbag.
Yeah, plays a really good scumbag. So he ends up taking him to this place to work on the ground, like show him it's a meat packing plant where he's from. I'm gonna show, and then he walks in and they meet the guy. Who goes, "You're not supposed to be here. It's 7:00." He's like, "Well, I want to show him how ground beef is made," and that would be the moment I would run and like ask for help. Like he's like, "Okay, fine, like just go along with Josh Duhamel, this guy that's literally you're there because he's gonna murder this family with a hammer." Wild, but all right. He ends up going. They end up bringing this terrible CGI cow out, which is bad, but whatever. Time's time. I'm glad
It's
they
the
didn't
60s, Cody. CGI wasn't good back then.
Well, I'm glad they didn't just pull a hammer out and smash a real cow in the head. But they ends up showing him. He's like, "I want you to take the swing. Like a guy like you. I want to see if you're one of us. Like kill a cow." I'm like, "This is what you do with all your friends? Like we all have to go murder cows together before you can join us?" He doesn't end up doing it. He drops it, and then don't worry, Frank's really good with a flipping hammer, so he swings it and kills the thing. And then they end up like fine, walking away together. The next day, fucking hell, he thinks he's helping. Jake shows up at the family's house, drops off tickets to a fair away on Halloween. Not like that would prevent Frank from wanting to kill them on the next day, for sure. I get if I stop this one of
It's a nice little band-aid on it.
I'll just say the the story that he's reading in front of the class is my dad killed my family on November
Thanksgiving.
1st. On November
Yeah,
1st.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's the next, whatever. Guy doesn't stop. Anyways, he ends up shouting. He's like, "Oh, thank you." He's like, "Oh, costumes." Like, "Oh, what are you gonna be?" "Oh, Harry, what are you gonna be?" All this stuff. He ends up leaving. He ends up going. I think he ends up going to the butcher shop or something.
I think the guy comes to and picks him up at the house he's staying
at the house he's staying at.
He's like, yeah, come with me.
Because before that the old
Right.
guy also tells him about how he won his Bronze Star.
Yeah, yeah.
Very
right.
cheery war story.
Yeah, I did skip over. He meets this older couple that rooms him in Holden, and she's like, "This is houses of the Lord. Like, we're not one to do. There will be no women. Do I have to spell it out to you, or can you pick up on it?" And he's like, "I can figure. Let me just spell it out for you. No women." And then he ends up doing she's like, "I'll have to charge you the full week's rent or whatever." And he's like, "Okay, what is it?" And it'll have to be up front. $3. No problem. I just had a 35-1 bet and a $100 bet. I got this, lady. So I ended up picking him up. He ends up going to the place. Frank walks out with his ex-wife or currently wife. And he makes a very big point when they talk about it. He goes, she ain't my ex-wife yet. Like, and they're like, no, never. And then ends up, she has a big like head on her face, and he's like, don't ever like. Oh, he's like, "Are you trying to fuck my wife?" And he's like, "Yes, but she doesn't know it."
I know how to save her.
For a guy that murders his whole family, he lets Jake off very easily. He punches Jake in the back and then throws him outside and says, "Get out of this town and come back." And then she leaves and he goes, "Sorry."
He's not that bad of a guy.
No problem. And then he ends up leaving, and he ends up showing up at the house with the revolver. Well, he goes running down the street to go get a gun, and she's like, I just need a gun. I just need a gun." And he's like, Stranger at night wanted to buy a handgun. That seems a little suspicious. And he's like, "Listen, I will here. What I don't know how much he puts out." And she goes, "Hell, with that price, I'll sell you. I'll sell you a gun. I'll sell you 5. I don't care." Like, lets him buys a gun. He ends up going to stand outside the house. He's standing outside the house waiting for it to happen because he knows it happens at 8:00. Um, the guy, the bartender, shows up behind him and is like, has him like a knife point, I think it was, and says, "Who are you? Like, why do you know Frank? Blah blah." Ends up revealing that Frank killed his sister, I believe, and he's like, "Listen, like," and he ends up shoving him down and pulls the gun on him. He's like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "All I'm saying is, it happens at 8:00," and he's like, "Something's wrong with your math, buddy. It's 8:05." And nothing's happened. And then you hear screaming. Oh, he went through the back door. They end up going in. He ends up finding Frank in the bedroom. He talks to Harry and tells him to stay in his room, which that kid does not listen whatsoever. And he ends up saying, like, he ends up finding Frank in the bedroom. Wife, I think, a broken arm or whatever. He has the hammer. They end up fighting, wrestling over it. Harry grabs the hammer from her and just starts dragging it down the stairs when he asks for it. And he ends up choking him out with a cord or whatever, ends up killing him, covered in blood, like leaving. He ends up just leaving, says bye to the family or whatever, and goes back to the family that was holding him or housing him, and he goes, "I think I should call the. You think I should call the cops on this? The sheriff?" And she's like, "Please, I know it looks terrible, but I did no crime here." Well, only God's the true judge and judge you at some point, blah, blah. And the sirens go. They end up leaving. He ends up leaving, about to leave, and he gets stopped by the
Bartender.
the bartender. And he holds up a newspaper, and it says it's Kennedy's assassination paper. Well, we need to talk about this. Get in. Boom. In. First 2 episodes. Thoughts?
I mean, I like that they kind of did this whole little storyline in one episode. I thought that was good that they didn't try to like drag it out. Then, like I said, I thought that Josh Duhamel, I thought he was like a really good scumbag. You were rooting to see him get killed, and Jake kind of manned up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, Jake is still, like I said, he can't read a room, and he just gets himself in these bad situations one after other, which I guess is what you need in a show. If he was smart and he did everything right, the show would be over and stuff. So yeah, but I mean, I think it's interesting. Now he's got a sidekick, I guess, or potential companion who's going to maybe help him get him back on track with the Kennedy thing, and maybe we're going to get back on that. I guess maybe in the next episode. Who knows?
Who knows? We're only doing 2 of this show tonight, right? Or are we doing
3? Yeah, just 2. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. I only prepped for 2. I was about to really go on the fly for 3, but I was like, I think we talked about it. I think we talked because
then the aliens come.
And man, Chris Cooper shows up with a Tommy gun. Like shit goes down. No, I didn't know. Like I thought we talked about that, but
Tune in next week.
I was like, when I was wrapping up, I was like, oh my god. I thought there was 9 episodes. Is there supposed to have 3 tonight? All right. Anyways, yeah, Mark, thoughts?
Yeah, I did find it funny watching this episode because watching this episode, they definitely toyed around with the idea of making this a long-running show. After watching this, like, you know what, they considered it. Like, what if we just have this show where James Franco's just in the past, solving crimes, knowing stuff about history, like that. There was definitely a thought, which made me laugh. Also, yeah, I brought up about Josh Duhamel. He was very good in this episode. Yeah, the moment he's taking a drive with this guy to go to a slaughterhouse, he should have gotten out of the car, went immediately to buy a gun. Like, I have to kill this guy. Like, he's obviously off the handle. There's no, like, I can't finagle around anything. This guy just needs to die. Okay, I don't know why we went through all this rigmarole, like trying to figure out like all this extra stuff. But
And
led
then the
into
next day, he gets in another car ride with the guy.
it led into that kind of cool monologue where he's talking to that guy where he's at the house he's staying at about like how he got his Bronze Star, a little bit of Stephen King and that bit there, so that was nice. But
I did like that
and
Jake said he served with the MASH unit.
yeah, we're bringing the extra, even though like I don't know where that guy came from. Like because he walked back to the house to his car and then drove away. Like, so this guy like follow him to this other house, steal a car, or like hid in his car. Like, what?
It's a small town.
So just putting that behind me a little bit. Like, we at least have something interesting here. Like, okay, we have a guy who probably knows what Jake's doing. Okay, that could be kind of interesting. I'm definitely invested in the story. Like, I want to know what happens. I will give it that. Definitely one of their sillier episodes, and we kind of just took a bit of a detour. But I think I'm definitely interested to see where this goes.
It's their second episode. It's one of the sillier episodes.
Right. Well, I mean, they have to I think they have to draw a little bit. Like, they spend an entire episode on a past story that they set up in the first episode, so that is overall silly. But I think it makes.
So I'm sure the book probably does a huge chunk in this area that's probably really good.
Yes.
I'm kind of curious at this point. I mean, Cody's seen it, and he probably will. I'm kind of curious if we ever actually do restart this period, or if we're just gonna be here and he just tries to settle this in the one go. It could go either way on that one. I'm not sure. I think
he has to go kill that guy again. And that's what I say. He's really not taking advantage of that. If this was me, I would have probably respawned this thing like 12 times already.
Right. Okay, we're about to go to Band of Brothers, or every army person or every military person that's ever existed in one series. Good Lord, good luck, Matt.
I'm going to give a upfront, let everyone know I am going to mess up things as far as units, companies. I'm not even going to bother with the ranks of the people. Half the time, I'm not even going to bother with the names of the people. But hopefully, you're watching along with us, so you'll be able to keep up. So, Band of Brothers starts with episode number 1, Kurhi, which stands for We Stand Alone. And I will say all these episodes start out with the interviews of the actual veterans. And I said that's probably one of my favorite parts of the whole series, is seeing these guys kind of telling their stories. And I like that it doesn't show the names of who the people are until the last episode. So you don't know who's going to make it through this thing if you're watching it for the first time. But yeah, so we start off June 4th, 1944 in England, as Easy Company is getting ready to jump. But there's a weather delay, so that's 24-hour weather delay for everybody. So you kind of see them, they get to watch a movie, but everyone's just kind of just thinking about tomorrow and stuff. No one's really watching the movie. And then there's a nice scene with Nixon and Winters kind of talking, reminiscing about back home and stuff like that. And then we cut to 2 years earlier, where Easy Company is jump training at Camp Toccoa. They have an instructor, I guess it's their officer, Sobel. All the men are lined up, and he's coming out inspecting the men and finding various different reasons to kind of revoke their weekend passes. I think he goes to like 4 people. Yeah.
Can I just say, I don't know how many more people will be in this that just don't fit. David Schwimmer. No. What? I'm sorry. You can't sell me that.
Pretty yoked up in this. I don't know what you're talking about.
Shut up. He is
you see him running those shorts?
oh my gosh. Yeah. He He's like this would be like this guy showing up to like, oh, I'm going to be a linebacker in this movie, buddy. No, you're not. No, you're not. Like, stop. I
Well,
literally
as we
sat there.
find out
I was
later,
like,
you find out he's kind of is more putting on a show than.
no. That's what I said when it first happened. I was like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
And then what they do real quick to him, I'm like, smart. I'm on board with it. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so he revokes everyone's weekend passes and says, "Hey, we're gonna run." So they're all running up to the top of the hill. I think it was 3 miles up, 3 miles down, something like that. So we get to see them running, marching. They run drills. You get to see all a bunch of their training and stuff. And Sobel is pretty much a dick the whole way through it. We find out that Easy Company is already getting a reputation as one of the finest companies. And Dick Winters is emerging as a great leader, and he's promoted. Sobel isn't super happy about promoting him, and he decides that after promoting him, he puts him in charge of the kitchen and asks to get a nice heavy spaghetti dinner. Everyone's kind of earned it, and we're going to have light exercise. And then after everyone's eaten their nice heavy spaghetti pasta meal, he comes in and like, classes are canceled. We're running up that hill. So you see all these guys just running up the hill, just throwing up, puking up all that pasta they just ate and stuff. Then we get to
it's disgusting.
We get to see them make their first jumps, which was pretty cool. And then they get their wings, and that making them officially paratroopers. And then we cut again to June 23rd, 1943, where they're over doing mission trainings. We find some instances Winters doesn't necessarily agree with Sobel and how he does it, but I mean, he follows the orders. That end up getting his company killed.
Yeah.
So Sobel pretty much gets everyone killed in the training. We find out Nixon was promoted to lieutenant. He's going to be doing intelligence. Cut again, September 6, 1943. Easy Company ships out off of NYC towards Europe. Cut again, September 18th, 1943. In Europe, they have more training exercises. Sobel messes up again on a training mission. There's a funny moment where one of the guys pretends to be a major and orders Sobel to cut a fence that's blocking their way through a cow field.
Oh my god. Why is there a fence here? Everybody go over there.
That dog just won't hunt. Oh yeah, so silly. That occurs, and that's kind of Sobel kind of takes it out on Winters. He comes up with some BS thing saying that you didn't obey my order. Winters like I did the order on time. I was like, oh no, I changed it. I was like, well, I didn't get the message. He was like, oh, just take the punishment and let's move on. Then Winters pushes back. He's like, no, if we want to do this, I want a court-martial trial so I can rest my case. So so that didn't go quite as way Sobel thought it was going to go. We see many of the Easy Company's officers try to resign due to their lack of confidence in Sobel's leadership. They don't want to go off to war with him as their leader. They all receive discipline. Pretty much the head guy over there pretty much told him if he didn't need him, he would have them all shot. But it kind of works because Sobel is sent back to the U.S. to train more people for jumping. They pretty much took him off where he's not going to be leading Easy Company into war. So then we go to May 31st, 1944. They begin planning for the invasion of Normandy, D-Day. Easy Company is tasked with destroying a garrison. One of the soldiers, Guarnieri, finds out that his brother just died fighting the war in Italy. And then we jump to June 5th, 1944. The planes are going up and the mission is a go as we end this first episode. So yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I can't tell you I know a ton of people in this. I know moments. Because he gets in it's this episode when he gets in trouble, like he gets that one guy in trouble and basically tells him to sign the court, like just sign it or whatever, or don't battle it, like you don't use your weekend pass, just use it. and he ends up saying, "I'll sign it. Like I'll take it to the thing," which puts him in hot water. They end up having a whole conversation about him like being transferred. He's like, "What? Like who's gonna take it? This guy's gonna take it." That fits shit was so funny. Because, like, we thought Jake in the last show was one of the dumbest. This guy is so dumb. Because you're like, wait, he just showed up behind a haystack and he's not making us president. He's just going to yell and we're going to agree with whatever he says. He's like, who cut this fence and let all his cows out? Like, you see
The cows just wandering around.
it's so funny. But no, overall, first episode, I think especially the next few episodes are more like less story
Mm-hmm.
and more war, which I expected. But overall, I like to at least get some knowledge on some of these people before we start dying in war.
Yeah, I love this episode. Curry is definitely it's definitely one of the better, I think, opening episodes for, I think, plenty of seasons. I think at least for definitely a lot of these miniseries, just a perfect. It's just a perfect introduction to everything that we're getting into, especially how we start. Which you're because you're a history guy. You're looking June 4th. Everybody's getting ready, but D-Day is June 6th. How come they're getting ready June 4th? And then like it's a big nothing burger. Yeah, and then I love all the stuff at the training camp. It's amazing. Like I think I really like David Schwimmer in this role. He plays a great asshole in this.
Who is shocked? Who is shocked that me and Mark disagree?
He does, man. Like he did, and especially like because I like at least the construction of this character in the sense that okay, he's a guy that is just meant to be an asshole to kind of bring everybody together, which works because everybody like pulls together in hating him, which is smart. The bad thing is he's a terrible leader. So like, which is the reason why, ultimately this was never going to work. And then kind of just seeing everybody, we get introduced to everybody. Winter's main guy, Nixon's great. And then, there's just so many like just great, like just comedic moments, like especially with Cutlets in there. It's like, hey, what Captain Sullivan hates us. Her is like, nah, bull, he just hates you. Like, like a bunch of those great, just kind of these neat moments to kind of get us introduced to these characters, which then leads into the war stuff. And then it makes all that war stuff like really impactful and kind of helps us feel like, we've lived with these characters a bit before they go overseas.
I mean, like you said, Sobel is pretty much built to be a great drill instructor, and that's where he shouldn't be leading people into battle, but he's great at, like you said, being a common enemy to like bring all these guys together as a unit. And when you're talking about the funny little character moments, one I forgot was Nixon and Winters kind of talking, I think on the train or something. And he tells him, "Oh yeah, I had a case of booze in your Foot Locker." He's like, "You did?" He's like, "Oh yeah." But yeah, so we'll jump over to episode 2, Day of Days. So we cut back. The planes are in the air. Everyone's getting ready to jump, and then the planes begin taking fire. And this is just a fantastic sequence. Just seeing the planes take fire. You got planes getting shot down and stuff before people can even jump it out. And it's crazy to see this. I said many casualties before they even jump. Most of Easy Company is able to jump. We pretty much have we get pretty much a lot of this episode is kind of us with Winters kind of following him through these couple days here. So he lands and he pretty much lost most of his stuff in the jump. So he's pretty much just starting out with like a knife right now. And then he meets up with one of the other guys from the unit, not his direct unit, but from the overall group, Hall, a younger guy. When I say flash, you say thunder. I love that's one of my favorite things in this show. Then see the men kind of group up bit by bit. They come into contact. They find some more of their guys. We find out that they landed about 7 kilometers away from their objective, so they have to work on getting their way over there. Along the way, they come across some enemy troops with some horses and stuff. Gunnery fires upon the enemy before Winters can give the order. So there's kind of a little tension there, but they take all of them out, including the horses and stuff. Winters and the rest of his men meet up with everyone else, and they get ready to start planning their attack on the Utah Beach garrisons. Malarkey comes across a group of POWs, and he finds out one of them was actually born and raised in kind of the same area as him, but his parents were German, so they kind of moved back to Germany back when Hitler kind of took over and all that stuff. So I thought that was
What a
interesting.
fucking talk about blind loyalty. Holy shit. Like, we live in the land of the free. You left for a reason, and you're like, time to join the Reich. What? I was dumbfounded.
But yeah, pretty much after his conversation, one of the other soldiers, Spears, comes up, starts handing out cigarettes to all the guys, and then you kind of hear him shooting everyone. Then we go to Winters is kind of leading the assaults on the artillery cannons. And this is another fantastic sequence. You kind of have them kind of fighting their way through the trenches there, going from cannon to cannon, kind of getting to blow them up and stuff. So they kind of push through the enemy and they destroy four of the artillery guns that the Germans were using to fire upon Utah Beach. So that kind of helps clear the way for the troops to storm the beach. The kid that Winters landed near towards the beginning of the episode, Hall, is one of the people that was killed during this attack. Winters is also able to gather some German intelligence. He finds a map in the trenches there that kind of has some of the other locations of the guns on it. So he grabs that and brings it back to Nixon and the intelligence officers. We find out that Winters is now pretty much the commanding officer of Easy Company. Their previous commanding officer, I believe, they haven't found a body yet, but he's presumed dead from one of the planes that went down. He lets Gunnery know that he isn't a Quaker. That was some discussion about how he doesn't even drink and stuff like that. So that was a nice little moment. And then at the end, the little text card talks about the assault being a textbook assault that is still taught to troops today in the training and stuff. So that was a really good. They did a really good job on that one. And that's the end of episode 2.
Yeah. Day of Days is another fucking awesome episode. We just get thrown in right in the middle of it. The actual D-Day stuff is great. Mm-hmm. Just going in there out of nowhere, bombs are fucking going off. Like, it just, you really feel like the Spielberg influence in this. I don't think he did much. They just produced it, but you definitely feel like they kind of want, like, Spielberg in fucking Saving Private Ryan, like, had his Omaha Beach thing, and they kind of wanted to make their own kind of iconic moment with, like, what it looked like for these guys going in on D-Day, and I feel like they did just that. And then when we get everybody on the ground and everybody just, like, lost all their shit because they haven't done this yet. Winters just has the knife. He runs into Lipton. All he has is, like, some TNT, and then, like, one guy just has ammo, and one guy just has, like, a gun. just a wild start to this. And then, yeah, we go into that awesome trench fight scene, which is just great, which loaded a lot of great moments, and including Spears taking the gun by himself and getting all of his guys killed because he ran outside the trench for some stupid reason. These first 2 episodes of Band of Brothers really just kind of rocket off this thing to a great start. It just really puts us on, like, just a good road for this thing. I love these first 2 episodes, and it's kind of the main reason I think I watch this so much, because it is so easy to get into, and it's so easy just to get hooked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't expect the TV show to put war on screen the way, like, in a Saving Private Ryan feel. Like, it's crazy how immersive the the actual war. I got lost in it a little bit because I was just like, I knew I was watching Band of Brothers, but then I was like, I don't know what I'm really watching because I wasn't like connected with any. I wasn't really connected with any character at the moment when this stuff was happening. But then I kind of just like subjected my like if we were like worried about like their day to days and what's going on, then I think but this was one like I'm just gonna like put to the wayside because I don't really care too much because it's just they're soldiers like this is World War II, like they are in the thick of shit. So like it's easy just to turn off and watch. I think it's very like what a contrast between episode 1 and episode 2. For me, like not like it's bad, but like they literally just like, hey, we're walking, and then your friend run, and you just why? Just go, just fucking go, and I'm like, well, okay, I thought we were just walking. It just goes and goes and goes. Great episode. I have no complaints. I just was like, I remember I like lost myself. It's like I'm watching a movie at this point. Like what changed? Like so no, great. It makes sense.
HBO definitely put some money in this thing.
Yeah.
Oh. Let me see. All right, so going on to episode 3, Keratin. All right, so we're June 8th, 1944 in France. Blythe, another soldier that we hadn't met up until this point, makes his way back to Easy Company. This unit is now tasked with taking Keratin. They find Fox Company and begin their assault on Keratin. They are making progress, but the enemy starts firing artillery on them. And that's just a crazy scene when they're kind of fighting through this little village here. And they got the artillery raining down on them. Lipton has a very close call. He gets hits in a very delicate area, but his friend rips open his pants and lets him know that everything's okay. So a lot of wounded men and some casualties, but they are able to capture the area, so they take care of that. There are several firefights along the way, including some tanks. We get more injuries, more casualties, but they're able to continue to fighting off the Germans, and they hold the line. As they're moving forward, we have Blythe volunteers to scout a farmhouse, and a GF gets shot in the neck. GF. I get it. Yeah.
So
yeah, it was kind of their commanding officer there. He gets shot in the neck there. And unfortunately, it happens right before Winters showed up to tell the men that they are being pulled off the front line and that they're going back to England. But of course, we find out later that plans have changed and they are heading back to France instead. During this whole thing, the unit lost 65 men. And that's really, this episode is pretty much kind of just nonstop fight sequences and taking the siege of the Keratin and taking it back. And it's just some phenomenal television. I think the action sequences and how they're mapped out and everything are amazing. You still do get a few of the small little character moments in there. There's the one moment where Blythe is in the medics there, and they're saying, oh, he's gone blind and stuff, and Winters kind of has a little talk with him and stuff, and then he regains his sight, so he's able to fight again and stuff. But yeah, so it's some really, really good stuff. Not a whole lot of notes.
you were not kidding when like
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I got a little bit back and forth on this episode because I think 3 and 4 are kind of where I feel like kind of the low points are in the show because we get started like a bat out of hell with Curry and Days, and here kind of slow things down a little bit, especially when we are introduced to a guy that we don't know at all, and also the guy is not super likable, although kind of the point because because on some sense, because I think on the sense we don't really like this episode. I think kind of comes in like strategic part because I do kind of want. They definitely want an episode like this that kind of talks about what these guys felt like, at least in the heat of action. And I don't think like this episode can kind of be put anywhere else, so it's kind of a good episode placement for that. It is kind of like looking back, it is kind of interesting to see how one of these guys just struggles with the fear of battle and how it's something that these guys say, no, we felt it. We just kind of put it behind us and we just kind of acted like soldiers. I mean, it's kind of put in really nicely with that talk that Blythe has with Spears in that episode. It's like, listen, like your problem is like you don't think you're dead at this point because you don't realize that you're dead right now. And when you realize that, you can just kind of act with, no remorse, like no regret. You act like a soldier should. Just a crazy thing to say to somebody, but it makes sense in that capacity. And like, what was I going to say? But no, like, I also think like it's a nice juxtaposition, especially kind of how we view World War II veterans, because there really is no argument to whether or not we see World War II veterans as heroes or not. In every other war, there does seem to be like a bit more of a push and pull, especially when we go to like Korea and Vietnam and Afghanistan. But World War II is kind of the one that like everybody's kind of in agreement. And it's interesting where we see one character who is kind of a coward for the majority of this episode. And when he does overcome that fear and he is and he's starting to be brave, that's ultimately what gets him killed. Like it's kind of cruel, like when we see that happen. But I think I've gone a long way with this episode. I end up liking it a little bit more. Also, funny thing I think you mentioned, like in that first battle, one of the things that always cracks me up is at the beginning where they're going into Carentan, everybody's like hunkered down, like in that road trying to take cover. And you just see like winners getting out there, like in the middle of the road, and the machine guns going, just kicking people out of the hole, like hitting people with the helmets, like get the fuck in here. Like no, this episode is pretty good still. I like it.
Yeah, Mark, you took a lot of the talking points, but I would say like the 3 and 4 would be like, it was weird. Like I got whiplash from the first two because it was like, oh, introduction, fast pay, and then this was just like more of a lull, more of a battle. But overall, like I really had zero complaints with either one of any of 4 of these episodes. Like I was honestly sucked in. It was the easiest of all shows, besides Breaking Bad, that we've done. That when the next arrow just clicked, it was really easy just to keep it rolling. I never got like, I'll come back to episode 3. No, I was just like in it, and then I had to remind myself when 4 ended to stop because I was like, I could have probably sat there the rest of the day and just finished it, but no, I think they're really strong. Yeah, when those tanks roll over that hill, and like son of a bitch, get going. It was like a great moment. So yeah, great episode. Great, yeah.
And then the thing too I like about it, these episode 2 and 3 just kind of shows that these guys have been trained really well. They know what they're doing. They get really lucky too with a lot of it too, and then we get to episode 4, and some of that luck's going to run out. So. Episode 4 is replacements. So pretty much we've lost a lot of men in the last 2 episodes, so they start bringing in replacements to join the Easy Company. And in kind of the beginning of the episode, you have the real veterans kind of talking about the replacements, how they didn't want to get too close to the guys because a lot of them are younger and inexperienced, and they pretty much feel like a lot of the guys probably going to be getting killed, so they don't want to get too close to them and stuff. So we kind of start out kind of seeing that they have like some time in like the bar where they're all kind of getting together and spending some time together. And you see kind of get the new people, and like the old people are kind of butting heads a little bit. And there's one scene where one of the guys tells one of the new people, what's that pin you get there on your uniform? Is like, oh, that's we got that for what we did what the units did on D-Day and stuff. It's like, you weren't there, you can't wear that. It makes him take it off. And then the bull pretty much comes up to him, is like, Technically, you weren't there either because he got he got shot up in the plane. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good scene. And we got scene Sobel returns as the regiment's new supply officer. Then we go to September 17th, 1944. Easy Company parachutes into the Netherlands as part of Operation Market Garden. And I thought this was really cool too, because you actually get to see them parachute in the day. They get a nice, calm parachuting down in there compared to their last jump over into Normandy, kind of night and day. So we kind of have them all kind of getting ready and stuff. You get to see them setting up and going through all their stuff. Bull kind of he's kind of taking a liking to the new guys. He's kind of watching out for them, kind of giving them tips and stuff. Kind of almost like a big brother to the new guys. And of course, the people of Holland are very happy to see everyone. There's parties in the streets and stuff. And the Germans are gone, and they have the Americans there. There's a scene where they're hauling off all the women who had slept with the Nazis and stuff while they were occupying the area, shaving their heads and saying a whole bunch of stuff to them and stuff. And then we pretty much kind of have them going down the road, kind of going to the next little village, and they come across an ambush. Pretty much, they have Germans are there, and they have tanks and stuff. They pretty much they tried to tell the I guess the Dutch army that's with them, like there's a tank right over there. It's like, I can't see it. If you throw a couple rounds in that building, knock it down, you'll be able to see it. It's like we were told we cannot destroy any property if at all possible. So the tank just keeps going down the road and ends up getting blown up by the German tanks and stuff. And like I said, this is pretty much a big ambush here, and Easy Company is pretty much taking a lot of fire, and they're getting pushed back. They pretty much get to the point where they have to retreat. A lot of people get hit and wounded and stuff. Bull kind of gets left behind as everyone else is retreating. He's kind of getting chased down with a tank that's just going down the road. He's able to get away from that, but he has to kind of go and hide as the rest of the Easy Company has to kind of grab their wounded and get away. Let's see. At night, Bull is able to make his way to a farmhouse where he's discovered by the owners, who are they're pretty cool with him. They kind of give him a little first aid, kind of help him out, patch him back up a little bit. But then the rest of the Nazis kind of catch up, and they're kind of searching the area. Have a few of them kind of search the farmhouse. Most of them go away. One guy kind of took a leak, so he was kind of left behind, and he sees the bloody rag that Bull had. So he's kind of looking around for him, and Bull and him kind of have to have a little fight there. Bull's able to take him out. Of course, he can't shoot because all the other Germans around, so they got the bayonets kind of going, and he takes them, kills them. And then pretty much the next day, he's able to, before the next days, a lot of the replacements are kind of teamed up. They said they're going to go out there and look for him. So they're on their way to go and find him. But he's able to pretty much catch a ride back, and he kind of regroups up with everybody. So that's kind of, everyone gets back together at the end there. And that's kind of it for the episode. They kind of slowed it down a little bit in this episode.
Yeah, that's the only complaint I have for the show. Of tonally speaking, it doesn't, like, I'm used to shows having ups and downs. This one's just bounces me, which is fine, because the only thing I equate it to is like it's war, so like not every situation is going to be either mortars going off in your face and dying in a trench or sitting around a thing, so that kind of worked for me. I didn't mind a slow pace, but it was hard because after the last two episodes, I was expecting for the pace just to continue, and then when we go for a lull, I'm just like I'm exhausted from the last episode, but now I'm exhausted, and this is just going to put me to sleep because I'm tired. Like, it's not a lot's happening, so I don't want to be that person that's like negative and be like, there's not enough action in it. Like, I don't care about that. I just wish like it had an up, a down, And not like a traditional arc. It just doesn't. But it's fine. Well done, well shot, well acted, well everything. Score's really good. Like everything in it is just money, but like just tonally just all over the place, which is not bad. So, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna bring the Replacements is probably my least favorite episode of this thing. I think a lot of people honestly probably tell you that. It's just because
You
again,
watch it twice a year, so I don't know if anybody else should be telling us besides you.
listen, we get around May, they just show it all the time. You know what? I might as well rewatch it. And for whatever reason, usually at Christmas it happens. Like I can't really explain the Christmas watch, but it does happen around that. But do want to just point out that one because the guy that like hassled James McAvoy for wearing the pin, that guy's name is Cobb. I only bring him up because that guy is a real asshole. Like there are several points in this show. And like an asshole to the point where I feel like his family would be like, "Hey, you do you really have to show like our granddad as just a complete tool in this show? Like, because all of us exist, but like he comes off as like a jerk, and nobody else does for whatever reason. But yeah, like this one still has moments, like because that part where like Bull has to kill that guy in the barn, like it's just I can't think of like a more stressful kill scene because he can't shoot the guy because if he shoots him, the others will hear it. And he also has to make sure he kills this guy as the planes are flying overhead. So he's got to do it quickly. and like all their like while like these two civilians are looking at him like he's like some crazy man just like stabbing this German soldier in this barn. Like that scene's really neat. But yeah, it's definitely one of the more low parts. So I can't really argue that much. Like, but it does get it because definitely these next 3 episodes we pick it up and pick it back up a little bit, and especially like 2 of them are probably at least 2 of the better ones of the series.
Okay. Now on to accident gone wrong. Well, and then the aftermath, Chernobyl.
I mean, listen, war was hell. So I almost thought, war was always the worst.
War, at least there's a group side that agrees to go to war against each other,
And,
the people just lived there and got fucked.
Good way to put it. Well, take you into the very glowing world of Chernobyl. We start out the first episode, 1:23:45, which is one like at I guess 1 a.m. 23 minutes 45 seconds into the day. Guess that means something. I guess we'll figure it out. Start out the first line. What is the cost of lies? Spoken by I can't remember his name, but it's by the Legasov guy, like who's kind of our main scientist who we'll come to meet through this, and he's kind of making a recording of his time in Chernobyl, and he brings up kind of this, and as he's making the recording, clearly doing the finishing touches, he brings up this guy named Dyatlov, who he mentions kind of who he thought was kind of the fall guy for this, but much bigger players at work that day. But he does casually mention that what Dyatlov did do, he does deserve death. So definitely not a good guy, if you were to say. Packs up these tapes, puts them along in his for his trash. Takes a look at some guy who's clearly watching him out in the corner, so he's being watched, but we assume is the Russian government. Takes out his trash, stashes like these tapes like in a little hiding spot. Then heads up to his apartment, lays out some cat food, gets himself a nice little smoke, checks the clock, and we're kind of close to like this time, the 1:23:45, and he hangs himself at exactly 1 a.m. 23 minutes and 45 seconds.
Do we know that for sure? I just see shoes. I don't see him.
We see a clock and we hear like a crack of the neck, like at the 45 seconds. So pretty. Also meant to say the guy looks very old and sickly, like at this time. So we then go in to Pripyat, Ukraine, where we see this lady and like her husband. They were sleeping in their bed, and she goes in the kitchen, make a snack, and way off in the distance, we see one little tiny explosion, and then we see like a big explosion, and then of course like it shock waves like through the place, and they're open. They just look at this thing, and we go into this control room where everybody's freaking out, like what the fuck's going on? Like Comrade Dyatlov, like what was that? And he's like, oh shit, what was that? Like oh the like the water tank. We must have blew the water tank here, and like that's when it exploded. Then one guy runs in the control room. Oh, hold on, like a core. Like no, we know the water tank exploded. No, the reactor core it exploded. And he's like, well, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. The reactor core didn't explode. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. So he's like, all right, got to make sure the core is fine. Got to pump some water through it, and just got to make sure it tests, make sure there's not too much radiation. And it was like, well, what about the fire out there? I was like, I don't know, just call the fucking fire brigade, bring them over here. So calling the fire department, try to deal with what's happened with the core, and we see like a worker guy who's getting out, and like he's trying to kind of help people out, and he kind of goes into what looks like was the reactor hall. Shit's all blown up inside, like clearly like nothing's in there. They're checking the dosimeters, things that measure the radiation level. It's in a measure called Rontgen, and he kind of checks his dosimeter. He's like, oh, it says 3.6 Rontgen. But he's like, but that's how high it goes. And of course, like they tell the Dyatlov guy, like, oh, like it goes up, like it's 3.6 Rontgen. And right before he tells him, like it's size, he goes, like, oh, okay, that's not great, but not terrible. Like we'll survive. Like 3.6, that's cool. Then we see the firefighters show up as the husband of that lady who was staying in the apartment. Her name was Ludmilla. They show up. They're setting up their hoses to like kind of fight this fire. And then like there's a guy like finds like this rock like on the ground. And he goes, his buddy, like, hey, what's this thing? He's like, I don't know, but I probably wouldn't touch it. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. He puts it back on the ground, and like, and sure enough, like as they're fighting the fire, it like his he looks back at this guy and his like fucking hands all bleeding and like it's like eroding away. So probably definitely something that's not really that foreboding, I would think. Then a couple more coworker, they go in there because like the Dyatlov guy is telling these guys, hey, you got to go look, make sure you got to probably manually get to do the control rods because we can't figure out anything here. And they go into the room. They see that there's definitely like this like black hole thing that's in there. There was one guy who held open like the little like vault door for him. And, like he's like bleeding from like his back and like his leg where he's holding out the vault door. So definitely all these guys in the building are being exposed to large portions of radiation. We go cut back to the wife where like she's definitely worried about her husband, and her friends are talking about going over to this bridge to kind of look at this fire from afar. Definitely like not like nothing like we really should worry about. Dyatlov like hearing all this news that that we like the core isn't here, something's definitely wrong. He's in denial the whole time. He's like, whatever, we just got to make sure we're pouring water in this thing, making sure it's stable. And then tells Akimov, well, we got to bring in the rest of these guys. We need bodies over here to kind of to kind of keep everything in line here since everything's gone. Like Akimov definitely doesn't want to go along with it, but Dyatlov threatens him, saying, you know what, I can't I'm not sure. I can probably help you here a little bit. I'm not sure, but I can definitely make things worse for you. So definitely gets that guy to probably do those stuff for him. Then we bring in the two guys are being woken up at their houses. The guy at the glasses and the kind of the curly hair, like they are the guys who run Chernobyl. They're being brought in, briefed in. Dyatlov tells them, hey, this water tank we think exploded, saying 3.6 Rontgen, so it's not super terrible. We just got to keep this aboard. I mean, you definitely tell like these two guys were trying to already put this shit on Dyatlov a bit, definitely trying to make him a little bit their scapegoat. Then we cut into this people at the bridge, and definitely a bit of a creepy and foreboding bridge scene. Everybody's there, and we see all the stuff like floating on them. definitely those guys definitely not in a great spot. Eventually, like these firefighters, like they're kind of working on this fire from the outside. It's not really going down, but they want to try to get this fire out on the roof, so they eventually like start making their way up to the roof. Probably with some of the most foreboding score that you'll ever hear at these guys like climb up to the roof, like trying to put out this fire. Topped them off, and it came off the two guys that are working the control panel. Like they're like, hey, we gotta pump water into this core. Like if we don't pump water into this core, even though everybody's telling around of like, hey, there's no fucking core here. I don't know where we're pumping fucking water into. There's nothing there. They're like, well, like we gotta pump water in this thing because like we gotta try to prevent the meltdown because it will eventually melt down if we don't do that. And they go in there to pump water in it despite everybody's objections. They're also definitely feeling guilty, even though they're trying to kind of in their head, kind of trying to kind of like trying not to like blame themselves too much, even though they're at least partially responsible. They then we get like this committee, like they're kind of being brought in, like and the two head guys, Krumyuk and that foaming guy, are there with Dyatlov, kind of giving these committee guys a lowdown, like listen, got it under control. And then there's one guy, the sane voice in the group is like, hey, yeah, there are soldiers out there vomiting. There's like this weird glow coming from the building. There's some fucked up shit here. Care to explain? And then they all start arguing. And then we get the maester from Winterfell. He comes in and he's like, listen, guys, we just got to pull together. It's the Russian way. We just got to keep the people mindful on their jobs. And in saying that, also cut the phone lines, shut off, like kind of cut off all the exit routes of the city. But you got to keep everybody in here so that not to cause a panic. People definitely won't panic whenever, we just set up roadblocks and, cut the phone lines. Then everybody's feeling good after that meeting. But immediately after that, one of the scientists comes in. He's like, hey, yeah, I brought in our high range dosimeters and it goes up to 1,000 and it like just broke like the moment I turned it on. And like, faulty equipment, like whatever. Okay. Yeah. But I brought in our other thing that goes up to 500. Yeah, that one maxed out. And, and then he's like, and then, I went outside the building and, it was maxed out there as well. And I saw this graphite on the ground. Like, and they're like, you didn't fucking see graphite. Like, whatever. And he's like, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm pretty sure the core has exploded. And then, like, the glasses guy is like, well, I don't know. Like, why don't you tell me how the core exploded? He's like, I don't know. I can't tell you how it exploded, but fucking did. Like, it's like, I know what I saw on the ground there.
Yeah, bitch. Like,
then while they're arguing, Dyatlov vomits on the table. He's like, oh, don't worry. He's been around feed water. Then they tell that guy, like, who just kind of tells him all this stuff. He's like, hey, why don't you just go up to the roof and check out the core? He's like, fucking, I'm not going up there. He's like, yeah, you're going to go up there, check it out. Or, this soldier and his gun are going to have a conversation with you in a minute. So, of course, he goes up there. He looks over the edge, and his face just becomes beet red within a second of looking over the edge. So he's definitely fucking dead. We see the hospital now being overrun. Everybody, the firefighters, all the workers who are around there, they're now going over there because they're dealing with all this shit. And then we cut to a healthier, younger looking Legasov. He gets a call from the Boris Sherbina, who the Skarsgård guy. He's inviting him to a committee, telling him about the Chernobyl blow up. And he's like, hey, need you to, be a physicist because you know all about RBMK reactors. Just come in, be the guy. And he's like, I don't know, like, shouldn't we like meet earlier in the day or whatever? And he's like, nah, okay, it's all good. We'll be fine. And then we end off with some kids heading off to school as if nothing has happened. And as they're walking through, we see a bird drop dead on the sidewalk and credits roll, and that is the end of the first episode of Chernobyl.
Now we don't
I'm
know
sure
if
you
that's
guys
related.
know.
The bird could have been just natural causes.
Yeah,
Yeah, birds die all the time.
I've seen signs. Okay, he just flew into like an alien ship.
Oh man,
I'm telling you right now, the stories and the stuff that you listen to about Chernobyl, if it's half accurate from what the show does, if I saw that thing blow up, I'm getting in my vehicle and I'm driving the opposite direction.
but no, Cody,
Not
it's
every,
fine. Don't
not
you're
everybody
good. It's
has the
okay.
same foresight as me, but like when did Chernobyl happen? When was the date?
Said 86,
80?
I believe 86.
So that's enough time to know about like the atomic bombs and the mushroom clouds. When big things go up in the sky, you want to get away. I'm gone. That's fucking tight. And like it's really funny because like all the people that are like trying to like handle this horrible thing that's happened. Not only are the most incompetent human beings that have ever existed, but overall they're just the most unwilling people ever to do anything. Hey, people are like, we have mass casualties. I don't know why that is. Okay, we have this equipment and we're testing it. Yeah, it's faulty equipment. Oh, I saw it on the ground. You didn't. Okay, fucking kill me. Like, I don't know what to do. Like,
How could
these
it
people are
possibly
dying.
happen? You're making it
These
up.
people are dying horrific deaths.
The water's
And they're just
contaminated.
like,
That's all.
he's a little sick. Like, god damn. I'm just sitting there the entire time like, holy shit, this is awful. But yeah, it's brutal. I think that it's acted super well. You had me like at Jump Street when he's like, the people of Chernobyl or whatever, the people should like face, like when he's saying into the mic, I'm like, yeah, whatever, let's go. And he looks so sickly. I think I don't know if you see him like health before, or that's in episode 2 is when we see that same character show back up. But it's just like crazy, like the makeup and the set design and how grim and awful this place looks. Like it looks like this is what every post-apocalyptic place like wants to like capture. It's fucking reality for the people of this place. Like, it's crazy. I'm kind of mad because it was only 5 episodes and I heard great things about it. I just never pulled the trigger. The first episode was phenomenal.
Oh yeah, man, I love this. I tried to watch this when it first came out. I must have either wasn't in the right headspace, or more likely I probably wasn't paying attention. I was probably playing around on my phone or something. And I don't think I made it through this episode. But this time around, I was
Mark
just
probably
glued
watches
to the
this
screen.
twice a year, and like right after a football game on Thanksgiving, he's like, "Hey, all right, kids."
He's like,
Before we
he
decorate
sees
for
the first
Christmas, let's learn about the
snowfall
cat.
coming down. He's like, oh, Chernobyl time.
He's like, like the kids in his family are. Before we learn about Christmas, we're going to learn about the casualties of Chernobyl. And next, I'm going to tell you what happens in Baltimore. All right, go. Not great.
Yeah, I mean, just even my notes here. Of course, the beginning is hang in there, buddy, which I guess is the guy that hung himself. This dude may be one of the worst guys ever, which I'm assuming is the guy who just keeps denying everything. There's people playing in nuclear fallout like it's snow. that just blew my mind. Fuck that old guy too, which I'm guessing is the old guy that told them to like we'll all rise up, but lock everyone down. And then pretty much just everyone is fucked. Because this is. Oh. I mean, just seeing kind of the different people going around through the plant and stuff, and kind of dragging people out of there and stuff. Oh, it's crazy.
It's almost literally the guy that is like the denier of everything is like arguably Mr. Bean. And I don't mean like he has every information in front of him and goes, ha, Couldn't be. But nobody it is.
Not on my
It is.
watch.
Well, who are you to tell me? Well, there's death. I get what you're saying. Try again later. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like,
we need to call everyone in. That we need them to work. That we need them to come in here and kind of go to work.
yeah, I think it's everything that this, like, Band Brothers gets talked about. This is just too new to get that same talk about. These 2 episodes, and I cannot imagine they're kind of smart, because the story of Chernobyl they could drug it out for 5, for make it 10, but they get right to the point, and again, these people don't have a real lot of situations. So, like, this shit happens fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't just sit there and, like, 6 months has passed. Oh, a few people are sick. No, people are fucking dying. This is you can't be around this shit, and it's happening.
I think what's really smart of this episode is because it's kind of weird because the main characters really of like the next 4 episodes are barely in this episode. Like, they're kind of afterthoughts here, where we're gonna meet them later on. They're like whatever, but everybody, it's just we are being thrown into what was the aftermath of this? What led this to being like such a horrible event that kind of changed the face, really, the world, but mainly Russia. Like, why this was just such a, like, and how, like, let's just show how all of the wrong decisions were made. Not some wrong decision. Literally every decision that was made that day was the wrong decision. And how most of it came from just arrogance and like just people's unwillingness to take credit or take blame of it, because they just didn't want to be the guy who fucked things up, and they didn't want to have to tell people, hey, I fucked this up, we maybe want to do something here. Nobody wanted to be that guy, and because of that, everybody is just in such a worse situation now. I think I told Matt this, I think before this, like, because I think when I first watched this, I think like a year ago or whatever, I think I started it like at 9:30 at night, and it was really hard not to finish this whole thing in one night, and especially after this first episode, it's like, fuck yeah, we're just in. So it's really is just a perfect jumping off point, and it just hooks you immediately, even though everything you're watching is just so grim. Like, you just kind of want to get into it.
Yeah,
to be fair, though, I mean, they made all the wrong decisions, but even had they made the right decisions, I don't really know if there's a whole lot they really could have done at this point to do anything, really. But at least they could have got the higher ups involved
people,
sooner.
Everybody around the situation, go. Bye. Everybody surrounding, leave.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. Be on the PA speaker and just like, get the fuck out now. Like,
I'm sure they got sirens to evacuate that whole town or something.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, it's very grim. The only thing I would say is, like, and I know people are going to be like, "Wow, way to go, Cody." This is like, it's like with anybody like this in the disaster film or disaster movie or stuff like that. I don't expect much people to come out of it, so I don't know how much I can like. I feel bad for the situation, but overall, like, at this point in time, like, this is like Rogue One. I don't see you with Darth Vader later. You're gonna be dead. That's my thoughts. So. But again, it doesn't make it a bad show. It makes it really good.
Okay, well then, go into our final episode then of the night, the second episode, Chernobyl. Please remain calm. We start out at this radiation kind of facility, like in Minsk. Like, we meet scientist Ulana Kumyuk. She's in there with she's in there with the other scientists she's working with. They hear an alarm go off, and in their lab, and it's like, huh, like eight millironkin, like that's kind of high. Like that should worry about that. And they're calling everybody, they're calling everywhere, trying to. They figure out it's reactor fuel, so it's like okay, there's definitely like a trouble in some facility. So they're calling everywhere around them, and then they get to Chernobyl. Is like I don't know, that's really far away. Like it had to be really fucking bad if it's them. And then they're calling them up, and it's like, huh, that's weird. There's no answer at the place. Sure, it's fine. We'll just kind of go on there. We go into the hospital and it's just complete pandemonium over the hospital. We got all the workers in there, the firefighters, the people from the bridge, like they're over there. They got all of them are got red faces. Some of them like they're got like peeling skin or whatever. They're all like really fucked up, like and like we also like getting all these firefighters like out of their uniforms because they got like radiation on them. It's a great scene where they just throw them all in the basement. We see that nurse just look at her hands already all red. It's like she's already got her radiation on her.
She gone.
Yeah, and then we see like pretty much everybody outside the hospital. Like they know all their loved ones are in there. They're trying to get in there. But the lady that we saw at the beginning, Ludmilla, with her husband, she's trying to get to her husband in the hospital. She passes by her friends like who are on the bridge. They're not doing too well. She eventually finds like a general in there and say, "Hey, like I'm looking for my husband." It's like, "Oh, he's sent off to Moscow. Like he's leaving right now." She's like, "Well, I want to go to Moscow." It's like, well, like just tell him it's okay, and like they'll lift the barriers for you. So she's on her way to Moscow to meet up with her husband. Then we go to Legasov. He's sitting there waiting for the meeting about Chernobyl to start. He's handed a report on it, and he's reading through it. And he's just instantly horrified by what he's reading. He knows something's really fucked up. They get into the meeting, and Skarsgård, Sherbina is talking already. He's like, "Well, they're telling me it's mostly under control. I think we're okay." And then they're about to adjourn the meeting, and fucking Legasov's like, "No, no, we gotta talk about this. Like, we're just like this firefighter said he picked up this black rock. That's fucking graphite. The only place you're gonna find graphite is in the core. If it's on the ground, the core blew open. We gotta do something about that." And then Gorbachev just sitting there. He's like, "Okay, so you're telling me you're getting all up in a tizzy because of like a rock that was on the ground?" He's like, "Yes, absolutely. That's what some guy like, okay, like, you know what? We'll send you guys over there just to inspect it, just make sure everything's okay." Uh, so Legasov and Boris sent to Chernobyl to see for themselves. Uh, Legasov tells Boris a little bit about how an RBMK reactor works, and like we definitely get a sense that Boris doesn't want Legasov to be there. He definitely thinks he can handle this himself. They get over to the facility, and the gossip looks at it for a second and realizes, the core is blown up. I see the stuff on the roof. That's all graphite. That's bad. And there's a glow coming out from here. We're fucked. Uh, After a bit where he tries to tell the helicopter guy to fly over the thing, he's like, "No, we can't do that. We'll definitely die if we do that." Scares the helicopter pilots, so they turn around. Uh, so then we go to that scientist, Ulana. She goes to voice her concerns at the party headquarters. Of course, like the guy doesn't believe her. He's like, "Nah, they're telling me it's okay, whatever. Like you're telling me all doom and gloom. I'm pretty sure it's fine." So she leaves there in a tizzy. Uh, uh, Bru- uh, Brukhanov, I think it was Brukhanov and Fomin like are there. They're waiting to meet with Boris and Legasov. And they're already like giving like gossip some shit, and it's like, "Hey, you're the guy spreading misinformation, and, like you're trying to get everybody scared. Like, what's the deal with that?" And then Boris, I think, can kind of tell that okay, these guys, something's up here, and he pushes back on them a little bit. He's like, "Hey, how come I saw graphite on the roof?" And they're like, "Oh, you didn't fucking see graphite on the roof." And of course, like one of the guys, "Huh, how?" It goes the other guy's like, "Hey, how come like Sherbina saw graphite in the roof?" It's like, fuck, like I don't know. It goes back and forth there. There's like, "Hey, let's just try to prove the gossip wrong. Let's see, just make sure he's wrong about this. Like, what can we do about that?" the general working there, General Pekalov, is like, we got our long range dosimeter in here. We'll put that on the front of a car, and we'll get as close as we can to this thing. We'll see like what the number is. So of course, see that guy, badass too. They're telling him, hey, like we can put lead on the car, have you suited up, but you may die. He's like, all right, I'll go myself. But that guy is a fucking G. I love the General Pekalov guy. He's awesome. So he goes up there, drives in. They're waiting to hear back. And then he comes back, tears off his suit. He's like, yeah, it's not 3.6 Ronkin. It's 15,000. And then he's like, Sharpin is like, hey, what does that number mean? Like, yeah, the amount of radiation that was used in the bomb at Hiroshima, it's a lot more than that. So we got to do something about this shit yesterday. So at that point, they take those two guys, put them in a room to, wherever. They're probably like locked in some basement or whatever. And I can see the light of day. Legasov is like, hey, okay, we need boron and sand. Probably going to cause problems later, but we got boron and sand to help put out this fire. And we also got to evacuate Pripyat. Like these guys are, just miles away. And then Boris said, no, we can't happen. I'm being told like I can't evacuate this. Let's just focus on the fire. Then see Legasov, he's going to stay out there. He sees having a drink at the hotel. He lies to some people hotel about how bad it is. So next day they start jumping into the fire. Tells them they can't fly directly over it, and we see why, because helicopter flies directly over the fire. All the control panels in it like fry up and it crashes. And Boris is like, hey, is there any other way? And he's like, no, there's no other way. I was like, all right, bring in the other helicopters. Let's try to put this fucker out. Like, just stay away from the building as much as you can. Ulana calls up. She finds out that they're dumping boron and sand. She hears about this. She's like, all right, fuck it. I'm just going to go to Chernobyl, try to figure this shit out. Later on, Legasov and Boris meet up again. Hey, it was a good first day. And he's like, we really got to evacuate this city. He's like, well, I've been told not to make that decision. He's like, we're staying here too. So like, it can't be all wrong. I'm like, well, whatever. Like, we'll be dead in 5 years. And he's like, well, what the fuck do you say? We'll be dead in 5 years. Like, what are you talking about? Immediately after that, they find out that, it turns out everybody else knows. Like, we kind of kept this thing from getting out, but the Americans got satellite photos of the explosion. Sweden got is detecting Ronkin from all the way where the fuck they're at. So yeah, everybody knows. And at that moment, they then do decide to evacuate Pripyat. A really neat scene there. Just go into everybody like they're no matter what they're doing. Just hey, get a bag, pack it up, get on the bus, and let's get the fuck out of here. So they get everybody out of the city. Ulana does make it to the city, like as everybody's leaving. She makes over to Boris and Legasov, and she's like, "Hey, I heard about what you're doing, and like we're gonna be fucked here pretty soon. Like, do this." And Legasov's like, "No, like I know the boron in the sand is gonna turn to lava. I know it's eventually gonna melt down, but told like it's not gonna happen for a while." And she tells him like, well, it's gonna melt into like these tanks. He's like, no, don't worry. Like, there's no water in the tanks. Told it's empty. And she's like, no, like those tanks have been running for a bit, and these firemen, well, they were doing the hoses are still connected, so they're still pumping water into this thing. And he's like, oh fuck, these tanks are full. Like, oh shit. So they meet up with Gorbachev, and he says, listen, in 2 days, this heat is going to eventually hit these tanks. It's going to cause a huge explosion that's essentially going to destroy most of Russia, the USSR, and Belarus. And it's going to cause like a nuclear winter in the surrounding areas, and it's going to make the entire area around us uninhabitable for 100 years. And then he's like, oh, okay, I guess what can we do about it? He's like, well, here's what we can send 3 plant workers, who know the area, send them in, and they'll drain the tanks. However, the radiation in there is so high that those 3 guys are probably going to die after they get out. And Gorbachev is like, all right, sounds good. Well, let's go, team. So immediately after that, they threw honestly, like through like a really weirdly effective pep talk from Skarsgård's character, he's able to get 3 guys to volunteer, get suited up, go into the building. They're being prepped. They're going in there. They're going their flashlights. Can't really hear what they're saying, but we hear like the radiation machines beeping all around them. They're like walking into walls. They don't really know where they're going, and like they look like they're clearly lost. And then we see their lights are starting to go out, and then that's when the credits roll. That they may get there, they may not. We're not 100% sure what's going on. So that is the end of Please Remain Calm. Duh.
Let's go there. Yeah, this was. I mean, I thought this was even better than the first episode. It's just this out of all the shows we've done, this was the hardest it was for me not to hit. Go to next episode. And see what happens. Of course, that's probably because I haven't seen this, whereas the other shows I've seen them all already. But yeah, I mean, he's back.
I don't know what happened.
The fallout is approaching.
Did I get dark on everybody else?
Yeah, you got dark, and then you just like froze, and then you disappeared.
Got it. Very true.
But yeah, this is it's always. I'm a sucker for like seeing like smart people trying to go up against a corrupt system, or just people telling them that they're stupid and stuff. And so I love all that. I thought that the interplay between Skarsgård and him, I thought all those scenes were great. And it's just the impending doom, and they come up with their plan, and then that plan has its now they gotta come up with another plan. This was great.
I mean,
I can't wait to watch the next one.
I mean, it's just what idiot is that? Like everybody, you always get this claim like the leadership let us down. No, this is like you couldn't fuck this situation up more. Sure, you couldn't do a whole lot, but you literally did everything wrong. Everything. From countless things that you just decided to just like undercut and shoot, like we shouldn't let anybody know. Well, guess what? You just sent a giant fire cloud into the fucking sky. Everyone knows. Shit. We have all this test. Can we get rid of them? Like, what? No. Hey, we could do this. We're going to lose 3 men. At this point, what's 3 more? You know? Like, they just
3
don't.
versus millions.
Yeah, they're like, what the fuck? We're already losing people. What's 3 more? Let's find the three that just don't. Like, it's crazy. It's such a tragedy, too, because it's so sad because it's. And this is just how I'm a sicko. So, like, I laughed a lot at these points because, like, it's just like it's almost the pitch of like a Three Stooges comedy. Like, how much more fuck ups can you possibly do? Luckily, this only lasts for 5 episodes because man, like they're just rolling out the circus. Like, it's crazy. Well, this shit's bad. This like all of it. I'm like, yeah, it's bad. Like, why? Do you think like it's crazy? It's crazy, but it's good. It's so good. It's so interesting. The characters are so like head scratching, but you just feel awful for everybody that had to experience that because, again, I don't expect them to know what they're doing, but god damn, the other people don't know what they're doing either, and that's game.
It
So
is. It really is just like a comedy of errors on just every front because you have the people that don't want to admit the mistakes and they're sitting there trying to cover it up, and at this point we can't cover this up anymore. And then you have the people that are in leadership positions that would do something if they're being told the right things, but they're not being told the right things. So they're just so they're kind of making decisions off of the bad decisions from earlier. And then you have the people that like the gossip and the scientists are like, okay, we are intent on fixing it. We're fixing this thing. But they're also not being told like other things from other people. So they're going about this the wrong way. That's just gonna fuck everybody up. It's just, and then we get to like guys like a Sherbina, like a Skarsgård's character who takes so much convincing, takes a lot of, but once he does, he does come around to it, although probably comes around to it whenever he hears, oh, I'm probably gonna die in 5 years. That fucking sucks. And then and we get to the ending, it's just it's like we can fix this, but yeah, 3 guys, they're gonna be dead. Because we're asking them to go into like the worst.
And hope that they can live long enough to achieve what we're sending them down there to do.
Yeah.
Oh.
But no, this is great. It was again, I like whenever I watched the first time, I had to watch the 3rd episode. Like I can't stop it. Like in this one, it was an easy smash for me.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the show, I would have watched all 5 of these that night. So
fair. Well, that's our first episode. We'll be back for 2 more. We will be watching 3 of Band of Brothers, 3 of 11/22/63, and 2 of Chernobyl. Mm-hmm. And then we will wrap it up the next episode. We will not do a recap episode after them. They're just miniseries. But we do want to do like more of these like in between seasons. Maybe like a failed one season show, stuff like that. Interesting spotlights that won't normally happen. So we will be back next week or 2 weeks from now for whoever's watching this. And bye.